just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to another episode of the Believe in NFL Draft Prospects podcast. I'm Joe DeLeone, joined by Ryan Roberts and Alex Gilstrap for our defensive tackle class episode. Don't know why I said center. We're way too loose on a Friday. We got Ryan eating saltines, yelling into the microphone, turning his lights on and off. Alex is calm as usual because we haven't talked to him in so long. But we're back. We're here talking defensive tackles. How's everybody doing today?
Fantastic, Joe. I would like you to stop, just controlling everything, though. Just let us be us. Let us be us, man.
Y'all bicker more than anybody I've ever talked to.
You haven't listened to the FCS show, apparently. But, Ryan, you were turning the lights on and off, and then you were...
Like this?
I'm going to kick you. Alex, how are you doing? That's the person we're most concerned with. We hear from Ryan too much.
Man, I'm good. I can't complain. I'm ready to get into this class. This class is good. This is actually something fun to talk about.
Yeah, there's one of your Georgia boys is at the top, I would assume, for everyone's group.
This is, Alex, I'm trying to think back just in my mind because I don't have it in front of me, but this is the best defensive tackle group in
really
X amount of years. It was bad last year. It was bad the year before. It's at least the best in 3 years, at least.
Who was 19?
Was that Quinnen Williams? Was that year?
Quinnen Williams, yeah.
Well, I can't remember the rest of that class though. Was it good besides Quinnen? I can't remember who else was in that class. I might look that up real quick. Sorry, Joe. We're going off on a tangent already, man.
You're good. Wait. Was Quinnen Derek Brown? Was that also them in the same year?
No, that was 2020.
No, that was the year after. That was the year after Quinnen.
Because that was Javon Kinlaw as well.
Oh, was that Quinnen's year? No, that was Kinlaw. That was Derek Brown.
Yeah, I hate to be the the party pooper, but I think that might be a little generous. There's some good players. The top
Ed Oliver.
The top two players are really freaking good in this. Oh, that was also the Dexter Lawrence.
Jeffrey Simmons.
Dude, that was Jeff Simmons. That
2019
group was silly. That 2019 group was silly, man.
So Ryan, off of all of that, I don't think we can compare this class to that one. I will agree though, the top two players in this class significantly boost it, and I think we kind of teeter out a little bit. I'm curious to hear who you guys have at 4 and 5. I watched some additional guys yesterday to have some more names to be aware of, and I admittedly didn't really have much shuffling from the guys that we did our comparison shows for. You could probably, Brian, guess exactly who I have in my order of my top 5. Don't do it.
Oh, okay.
Screw it. Do it, and I won't tell you if you're right or wrong, just for the fun.
Okay. Number 1, you'll have Jalen Carter. 2, you'll have Bryan Bresee. 3, you'll have Siaki Aika.
Yeah.
4, you'll have Keeanu Benton, and then 5, you'll have Kalijah Cansey. That's my guess.
Well, we'll find out if that is correct.
Yes.
Before we get to that, though, folks, I want to tell you
what do I get if I was right?
You get to speak on the next episode.
Good. Nobody's tuning into just a Joe DeLeone solo draft show. Turd.
What I'll do is I'll bring you in, but like I was doing when you were eating the crackers, I'll just keep repeatedly muting you the whole episode. So we'll hear little bits and pieces, but
just be like,
yeah, it'll be really compelling audio. It'll be really high quality production.
Can't wait for that.
Before we start with our top 5s, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which, as always, is Bet Online. I was telling these guys about my bets today, and I am way too deep in on baseball betting because baseball, to me, is a little slow, and I got to make it a little bit more entertaining until football comes back. And if you're like me, you want to have some fun during the summer and you miss football, head on over to Bet Online. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including NBA, Summer League, Major League Baseball, and the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE to get the bonus and get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, Alex, let's start with you, with your number 5, and we will try to do this the same way as we've done it before. I want to just reiterate, we're going to alternate. Don't reveal who if we bring up a guy, don't reveal where they are in your ordering, But if, say, hypothetically, somebody names somebody at 5 and they're their 4, and if you want to jump to them after everybody's gone, then we'll do that. Alex, who you got at 5?
Yep. So a common theme when it comes to summer scouting and the guys I gravitate towards is those that seem to get better the more games I watch, because obviously you try to watch games in chronological order. And if they seem to get in the rhythm of things, the further he goes into the season, I tend to lean towards those guys and bank on him continuing to find that, level of success and getting better and better each game. So number 5 for me fits that mold in my opinion. And that's Auburn's Colby Wooden. Colby Wooden, 6'3", 280 pounds. I really, really liked his explosiveness. I thought he got off the ball really, really well. And there were times where when the paws got on him, he struggled, but getting the paws on him, that initial punch was hard for a lot of interior linemen. And I think that's really, really because of his athleticism, in those first 2 steps of his pass rush. So someone that early on in the season I was getting bored watching because he was getting stood up. But you saw him continue to get better, and I think he ended with like 40 pressures on the season, 7 sacks from the interior. I mean, in SEC ball, that's a good season, and especially if you watch those. Season. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're watching the first couple games of the season or first couple games that I watched, just he was just non-existent, and so that really I'd be interested to look into his game logs. I didn't do that. I should have done that in preparation, but I would go to believe that probably 3/4 of his total pressures were in the back half of the season, just from the way it seemed watching him on tape. The second half of the season just looked like a different animal.
Let me ask you, Alex, because he's a little bit of an interesting body type. I have not watched Colby Wooden, but to your point, admittedly. Yeah, 6'3", 280. To my knowledge, he plays a lot on the edge for Auburn, if I remember correctly.
Plays like a 5, yeah.
Plays a 5. So next level, 3-4 defensive end, 4-3, 3-tech. Like, what do you see from him?
Yeah, see, I think where he plays at Auburn is kind of like a 5-tech fits best. So I think a 3-4 end probably suits him best, and that's where you get kind of when we're talking interior defensive lineman and edge and how it can kind of get mixed up because you have these guys that what they play in college might not be what they, look like best. But I think a 5-tech is where he's most comfortable when I'm watching his film. He moved inside some, but just didn't seem to have quite the power profile to hold up in the inside. So I think a 5-tech, 3-4 defensive end is what makes most sense for him.
It's interesting. I need to get eyes on him. Joe, I'll tell you this. I have an SEC player at number 5, as Alex has an SEC player. What conference is your guy from at number 5? Just curious.
ACC.
Oh, okay. So I guess we should continue the SEC trend then. I'll jump into my number 5. I got Gervion Dexter, defensive tackle out of the University of Florida, 6'6", 313 pounds, entering his true junior season. He was a high 4 by everyone, bordering on 5-star, I think, by a couple different recruiting platforms coming out of high school. He reminds me a lot of Michael Brockers when Michael Brockers came out of LSU. He's long. He's got some explosiveness and movement skills. He just doesn't know what he's doing right now, right? Like he's a guy where I do too sometimes, man, because in summer scouting, you gravitate towards the traits, right? And the kid has traits. I just have not seen him put it together yet. There's some raw athleticism, there's length. Like I said, I think he's a scheme diverse player because Brockers has been able to play in a 3-man front, he's been able to play in a 4-man front, and he's just been a very good, solid NFL defensive lineman. Not a star, but that's what I kind of see with Gervion Dexter. I think he could present some issues with his length and his first step. I think everything is sufficient in that regard. Needs to get stronger, and I need him to put it all together. Right now, technically, he is not there. He has a narrow base at times. He gets skinny in gaps when he should be able to just keep his maintain good body positioning to the line of scrimmage and stay square. There's a lot of things that need to get fixed with Gervion Dexter, but I think eventually he's going to be a scheme diverse defensive lineman that has some athletic traits to work with, a la Michael Brockers.
And buying into that length, and it's part of the conversation that we had with Jaquel and Roy. And I was like, I feel like Dexter for me is a little bit more of what, like, I'm more willing to buy into that type of length because I at least got you get a little bit more from Dexter. Didn't watch a ton on him, but I still have a little bit of perspective on him. The one thing I will say, though, the lack of coaching from the Florida coaching staff and so many like quality recruits that just feel so underdeveloped is frightening. But it's positive that now they have a new direction, a completely new coaching staff who I think a guy like him, a guy like Dexter could take that step in the right direction in his final year, likely with Florida. So hopefully he is one of the guys that improves, kind of like Osiris Torrance, who we're talking about improving. But Dexter being in a better situation now that they got rid of Dan Mullen is probably a positive sign for him.
They have a lot of those guys. I mean, Alex, we've talked about like Brenton Cox in the past, right? Like Brenton's a talented player. He was at Georgia to begin with. They have Trey Dean at safety, who I think is really talented, but he's just never been that guy, right? Like to Joe's point, I think there has been a lot of guys that have been a little bit underdeveloped in that program.
Is Brenton Cox, is he a defensive end or a defensive tackle?
He's an edge.
Probably an edge. Yeah, he's probably an outside linebacker, if anything.
That's what I thought. I'm just double checking. I didn't miss him for this tackle class because I know he's a name that keeps getting brought up.
We missed him last week. So.
Alex, do you have any thoughts on Dexter?
Yeah, no, Dexter is one of my last watches, and I was impressed. I think the high level play from him, like his peaks were super high, and I think that's a testament to his length. The guy looks like he's built in a lab for an interior guy. I mean, being that long and that tall is really fun to watch and makes him stick out. So I like Dexter. I think he's a lot of fun.
Joe, are you a big fan of the defensive lineman that wears single digits? Because he wears number 9 and it looks fantastic.
Big time fan.
I am much more of a fan of the single digit defensive lineman than Jalen Carter wearing 88. I still think that is so freaking weird. I don't know what it is. Number 1, I'm not a fan of for defensive linemen, though. I think that's a little goofy.
Depends what you are. Like you can't be a man in the middle because then it makes you look too slim. But like number 8, number 7, like those things kind of
like Lewis Nix when he wore number 1, I thought was really
awesome.
Silly.
It was.
I
awesome,
thought
man.
that was silly. I liked it, but like that a receiver or a corner should be wearing that. Or
who made single digits on the D line popular? Was it?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Or
Clowney were
Clowney.
7.
Lewis Nix was before Clowney.
Yeah, Lewis Nix were number 1 for Notre Dame.
Yeah,
he was one of the first ones.
He was a 340-pound nose tackle that his nickname was Irish Chocolate. It was fantastic, and he wore number 1.
I remember Lewis Nix, and he
R.I.P. by the way. R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. But I in high school like stood on like a hill that I was determined he was going to be a top 15 pick, and his draft stock just gradually started to plummet. And so many of these kids I went to high school with were such assholes. So like they would just rip me for like loving this guy because he had a great personality and he was like fun to pay attention to. But that's the quick background on those things.
But he's a nose tackle, so he's gonna be like Siaki Ika and then fall in the class because he's just a big fat guy. Anyway,
I think Siaki Ika is more than just a big fat guy, and you take that back, and we're gonna get to him soon.
Great.
Number 5 for me is, you guessed it right, Ryan, Elijah Cansey. I wanted to include him somewhere in this top 5, and I have a feeling that Ryan included him somewhere in your top 5. We had this long discussion on Cansey. He's tiny. He's maybe 6 foot. He might be 5'11 3/4. He was listed at 275. Looks like he was playing at 260. A tiny defensive tackle, an outlier to the most extreme point possible for a defensive tackle. But despite being an outlier, he is shifty, he is quick, and he's got very nice upside as a pass rusher. What makes him a tricky evaluation projection, and maybe this isn't the best approach because I don't know if he's going to be a full 3-down player, but what he does as a pass rusher, how quickly he can move and contort and work around guards that are just too slow to keep up with him, I think provides tremendous value as a prospect, but he needs to add weight and he needs to provide more impact as a run defender because right now he's just too small to really do that on all 3 downs.
I had Elijah Cansey as my number 4, so
that's what I had. I had a feeling you did.
He's a good football player, man. His film is, and Alex, we talked about this on the show yesterday. I think he has 2nd-round film, but then his size is just such a question mark, man. Like it's something where I wouldn't be comfortable drafting him until somewhere on day 3, but I think he can be a mismatch in sub-package situations and obvious passing situations. Like, I think he can do all that good stuff. It's just how high of a ceiling is a guy that maybe can only hold 280 pounds, right? Like, that's where, because not everyone's Aaron Donald, obviously.
Right.
Like, we know that. And that's going to be the comparison that people are going to make. But Kalijah Cansey is even smaller than Aaron Donald. So I see a guy that can definitely play at the NFL level, and he has good film. I'm just worried about what is the ceiling to him. Is he anything more than just a sub-package rusher?
Yeah, that was my biggest hesitation with him. I don't think he's a 3-down player. I simply don't. I don't think he's someone that you can rely upon on rushing downs, especially on the interior. I mean, maybe if you want to go with some sub-package where he plays on the end, maybe on a true rushing down. But as far as his prospects on the inside, I see him as truly someone that you want on pass rush downs, 2-down player, like you said. Now, in a pass rush situation, I think he's a difference maker. I mean, this guy's versatile. You can run stunts, you can do whatever you want. This guy's going to rush the passer, and he proved that last year, especially. So I think he's a difference maker on 2 of 3 downs. 3rd down is just where the question mark lies, and his projection to the NFL level is iffy because of that. So I liked watching Cansey. I do have the same worries you do, but I think he's truly a difference maker in pass rush situations.
And the thing that's so funky for him, though, is you see his size profile, you watch him as a pass rusher, and it's exciting. And your immediate thought is, oh, this guy's going to get bullied by stronger guys and is going to get bullied on rundowns. But he doesn't really get like thrown around that much. Like he doesn't. For a small guy, you would expect every so often to just get cleaned by somebody that's a lot bigger and stronger than him. He's got decent play strength, but not enough to be reliable as a run defender. I still think if you get him up to like 285, which is probably his max, you could maybe make the argument and he would have a little bit more strength and he would be harder to move off the ball on rundowns. You don't need him to make tackles. You just need him to not get blown off the ball, which is such a crappy projection for a prospect, but he's just bizarre. He's really weird to project how he impacts the game.
The 2 games that stood out to me for Cansey when watching, I watched the Tennessee game, and I think everyone had to watch that game because that game was fun. I mean, he couldn't get blocked in that game. And then the North Carolina game is the one that stood out to me as far as his versatility because they used him on stunts, and he had so much success with stunts against North Carolina. He was wreaking havoc in that Sam Howell backfield. The offensive line in North Carolina we talked about in the past has been troublesome for Sam Howell and his progression in college. But Cansey made them look silly on a couple stunts there. So he has some really, really nice flashes, and I just wish he could hold more weight. But like y'all said, I don't think he has too much room to grow without it being sloppy weight.
Yeah, it's the question of how much weight can you put on the frame. Like that's my biggest thing is because I mean, Joe, for me, like the biggest thing is he's a really good athlete on the interior, right? And he's flexible. I don't want to put too much weight on there and then sacrifice that
blubbery and
right?
He can't move and he's stiff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a really good point. By the way, Ryan's top 5 is Gervion Dexter, Kalijah Cansey, Keeanu Benton, Bryan, Bresee, Jalen Carter. That's my guess.
Why are you doing that right now?
I'm guessing because I figured it as soon as you said Cansey, I knew it.
Okay.
Alex, who is your number 4?
Maybe I watched somebody that just blew me out of the water, Joe. Did you ever think about that?
Highly unlikely.
Okay.
I'm in your head.
So my number 4, we've already talked about.
Oh,
that being Gervion Dexter.
Oh,
nice.
I'm banking on upside here. I might get. He's someone that he's either going to be a day 3 project player or he's going to really turn up in 2022 and be a solid day 2 prospect because 6'6", I mean 310, 315 pounds just with his length just doesn't come around every day. And like I said, the highs for Dexter was some of the best interior tape I've seen. It's just you also get hit with the lows. And if he can put it all together, this is someone that I'm banking on could be a really, really impact player at the next level.
Don't disagree. I mean, like, again, I compare him to Michael Brockers, so I think Michael Brockers went top 15 in the draft, right? Like, I mean, I think you can also argue that he hasn't been worth a top 15 pick, but he's been a good player. So I'm there with you, Alex. I'm there on Dexter.
And the last thing, just to reiterate my additional point, you now have Billy Napier, who is a really good coach, and he's developed linemen, and obviously, I think Robert Sale was I forget who the offensive line coach was that coached up Osiris Torrance. I don't know why I just had like a little like off tangent brain thought there. But Napier though, like even if he helps him get a little bit better, I think that length, that upside could be enough to help him to what you guys are projecting being a day 2 pick. I think is certainly on the radar. My number 4, I know is exactly Ryan's number 3. Yes, Ryan's number 3. Keeanu Benton from Wisconsin. The long form discussion we had with Keeanu Benton, I am 100% buying in on the strength. I am buying in on the power. I think he rivals Bryan Bresee in terms of that raw power that he brings to the defensive tackle position. He is not getting moved off the ball. He is popping guys' chests back. I talked about how that wrestling background shows in his efforts to disengage blockers. He is very violent with his hands, which is something you almost don't see as often in modern football because these guys are just so used to doing those goofy padless one-on-one drills coming into college. But I think there's a lot of value for Benton. The one thing that I'm willing to put him at 4, and I think I'm going to be moving him up eventually by the end of the season. I just need to see more effort from him on every single down. I felt like there were noticeable plays. And again, this is the discussion, the debate that Ryan and I back and forth. There were some plays where it felt like he was giving 3/4 effort. And there were certainly instances where if he didn't win in the first like second and a half of a rep, he lost juice. He got tired and he kind of just was out of the play. And that to me is concerning. I'm sure that he's going to work on it because he's got time to develop. But those are my concerns with Benton. And I know, Ryan, you're going to speak much higher of him than I did.
He's a top 50 player, man. Number 3 on the board for me, Joe. Yes, number 3 on the board. He is a really, really good football player. He right now is a better player than Bryan Bresee. Bryan Bresee just has more upside. He's a better player, though, right now than Bryan Bresee. But I think we're closer to what his ceiling is than what we are with Bryan and Bresee. Bresee still has a lot more development that's going to happen. Man, Benton, right around 6'4", 314 pounds, 34-plus inch arms, former wrestling background, great hands, great feet, explosive. I think Wisconsin uses him out of position. I don't think he should be playing nose. I think he should be a 3-tech because I think he has those movement skills and he has just some of the most raw power, man. Like he just moves people and he is unblockable at points. So Joe's a hater.
Well, he's my number 4 guy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, you're speaking so negatively of him, man. He's just such a good player. Such a good player, Joseph. You just don't get it, man. You just don't get it.
Well, this is interesting because I forgot to watch Mr. Benton.
Oh man,
that's
my number 3 is different.
Who do you got? Who do you got?
Wait. Let me think. All right, go ahead. I want to hear this.
We're going out west.
It's a USC guy. Wait. I'm blanking on there's a USC defensive tackle. And I'm blanking on his name.
It's not
USC.
Wisconsin?
Nope.
No,
it
he
is.
said out west.
Sorry, Washington. Meant to say Washington. Relax.
Oregon.
Dorless.
Brandon Dorless.
Huh.
Man, made me stand up a couple times. Fun player.
Oh.
This guy is wicked explosive at the point of attack. This guy can make tackles look silly trying to put his hands on them. He's super, super quick. He has a motor like nobody's business. I just love the way he plays the game. And then looking at some advanced statistics, pass rush win rate, obviously coming from Oregon, Kayvon Thibodeau, that's the name, right? Career pass rush win rate for Kayvon Thibodeau, 19%. It's really, really good. But just behind him is Mr. Dorless at 16%.
Oh, man.
Not bad prospects. Now, I am interested to
Alex
see.
is going PFF on us, Joe. He's going PFF
I did. I'm going
to start muting Alex.
Well, no, because I felt like every time Dorless was in the backfield, so was Mr. Kayvon Thibodeau. So I was really interested to see, how they fared next to each other. And it's something I actually just came across when scrolling through the timeline. So I'm interested to see what 2022 looks like without Kayvon Thibodeau as a crutch, because obviously the focus is on Thibodeau. It's on number 5, but I want to see what number 3, Brandon Dorlus, has again, a single-digit number as a defensive lineman. It's fun to watch. And I'm excited to see what he looks like without Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side of him, see if he gets more focus from, the scheme from offensive coordinators to kind of neutralize him at the line of scrimmage and see if he still has the same level of success. Because if he keeps that same level of success without Kayvon Thibodeau, this is someone I'm really excited about.
Where would you project him position-wise?
I'd say 5 tech. Same thing as when I was talking about Wooden. I think this is someone that's head on a tackle. I think that's where he's best. 3-4 defensive end. I know that's a tight projection. I think he could play some 4-3 defensive end. Honestly, I think he has that level of athleticism, but he'd play the strong side. He's a big end. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he's necessarily someone you want as a 1 or a 3 tech. I just don't think he like Wooden, and maybe I'm falling in love with the more athletic guys that are considered interior, but could play along across the defensive line. But I just had such a good time watching him and seeing him in the backfield with Kayvon Thibodeau with consistency was a lot of fun to watch for me.
No BS. I was trying to get to one more guy, and it was Brandon Dorlus that I was going to get to, and I didn't get to him, man. Didn't get to him.
Dang.
Only 21
I'm excited to hear
years
your
old.
thoughts. I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
He's going to be a 4th-year senior. He's only 21 years old, Joe. Nice.
That's pretty. So did he come in at 17? That's pretty crazy. He's that young.
I don't know, man. I guess. Alex, that was your number 3, or that was your number? That was your number 3.
That was my number 3 because I didn't watch Benton, so I knew there was an extra guy. I feel like our top 2s are all the same.
All right, Joe. Let's hear your number 3, man.
My number 3, the biggest boy on the board, Siaki. For some reason, Ryan is a hater and hates Siaki.
I got it then. I got the top 5 right.
Yeah, you did. I got yours right too, you bozo.
Shut up. It doesn't matter.
Siaki, the biggest boy out there. I believe he's listed. Was it 360 that this grown man is built? Is listed at. Ryan's a hater, but I see a man that's not a big, fat, sloppy mess. This is a guy who's got the similar build to Vita Vea, not the same.
I never called him a big, fat, sloppy mess. I never did.
Similar build to Vita Vea, not the same prospect. I'm not saying he's a top 20 pick, but similar build where he is so big, he takes up a whole gap. He is that wide, and I think he carries his weight really well. He has really good play strength. But the reason why I'm high on him is that he moves way better than you'd expect him to move for a guy that is listed at 360 pounds. I'm assuming that come draft time, come time for the combine, he'll probably drop a little bit of weight, as these big guys tend to do. I'm sure he'll run well in the 40. He's going to test well on the bench. This is just another one of those big, massive dudes like Danny Shelton, like like Vita Vea. And we had this whole conversation on the show, Ryan, that is going to move well for his size. I know that you think that he doesn't provide any value as a pass rusher. I argue that he has more of a motor than Keeanu Benton does. If Keeanu Benton shows me more motor, I'll switch him. But right now, I think that there is some potential here with Siaki Ika based on how freaking massive he is.
Can't get the Texas State game out of my head, man. Just can't get it out.
Did you ask Hergel about blocking him?
Oh, yeah.
What did he say?
That's off the record, man.
Off the record? You were interviewed him.
Well, no, I didn't ask him during the interview. It's a side converstion after the interview. You know?
Did he say off the record?
Yes, he did. I'll tell you after the thing.
Okay.
Alex, tell Joe he's dumb. Can you do it real quick?
Ryan, who are you taking? Ika?
Oh, here we go.
Or Tyler Shelvin from a couple years ago?
They're like the same guy, man.
Exactly.
They're like the same
exactly guy. My point. That was my comp. That's where I was coming. I was just seeing.
No, don't do this to me.
Tyler Shelvin. I like Tyler Shelvin, but.
And Tyler Shelvin got drafted where he should have got drafted. He was a day 3 player, and I'm sure he'll be a solid
Tyler
Shelvin in the NFL.
Is 6'3", 246. Those are not the same.
You mean
those are not the
right?
same player.
You admitted Ika's going to drop weight, just like Tyler Shelvin did right before the combine.
God damn it!
He's like 10 pounds lighter.
It was part of your. It was part of your spill. He's going to drop weight.
That's a good point. I don't have much of a leg to stand on.
Joe, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack because last year was his first year as a starter. I'm going to see what he does in his second year. I just saw a couple games, man, where I was just like, hey, he didn't make an impact to me. Like, not even just, I don't know. Like, that Texas State game was one. And I know it was the first game of the season, so, like, I'm not trying to harp
and they're
on
playing
one game.
Texas State, man. Maybe he was a little hungover.
Kind of the point.
That was kind of the point. But even though he did go against Kyle Hergel, who I just interviewed for the show, who has a draftable grade as a guard, and I thought Hergel handled it, man. Like, he handled him. It's weird.
How big's Hergel?
6'2", 300. He's not nearly as big as
that's
Siaki.
depressing. Is Hergel mad at me for not responding to him to set up a time? I still feel bad.
I don't know, man. I was like, have you talked to Joe DeLeone? And he said never heard of him or something. So
I felt bad. He sent me like a couple times, and like they were just really weird times, and they were like really early, and one of them was really late. I'm just trying to.
Joe's big time, man. He's a big time guy.
I am big time.
I might fit his schedule.
I might be bigger time, but I'm not gonna say anything about that. There's a development. There's a development in that. I'll tell you about that after, Ryan.
Nice.
All right. Final thoughts on Siaki Ika before we talk about the two big dogs.
I like him for his role. I just don't think that the role is that valuable. That's just all it is for me.
You're wrong.
I liked him. I thought he was solid. Yeah. I was kind of being disrespectful with the Tyler Shelvin remark, but
I don't dislike him.
Shelvin.
I don't dislike
maybe.
I mean, you might not be wrong, but like we're arguing non-valuable nose tackle only to non-valuable nose tackle only. Like that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing.
All right, fine. All right, we're moving on.
Let's move on.
Top number two, Bryan Bresee across the board.
Number two, Jalen Carter. So I really like. All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
That's a terrible bit. Bryan Bresee across the board, number two. For me, and I think we're going to have a consensus here, is a physically domineering player. Like he brings this presence with his strength, and he has very deceptive movement skills. I think he's really, really freaking flexible. I had my way of determining that he was flexible was really quick. I was watching. It was one of the early games of the season because he went down with the injury. And not a lot of defensive tackles do this, but when he was in his stance, he, instead of like putting his knees on the ground, he like sunk his butt while he was like looking up and listening to the linebackers. And not a lot of defensive tackles can just like sit in their stance like that without putting their knees on the ground. So he's got flexibility. He's really explosive. He's really powerful. And then the big thing for me is that Clemson was willing to move him all over the place. He played a 0. He played all the way out to a 7. He's not going to play 0 at the next level. But to know that you can plop him in all these different positions, I think speaks to his value. Main concern is the injury stuff. And I think as long as he finishes with like a 90% healthy game rate, if that's a thing, I just invented a new statistic. See how easy it is, PFF? Eat shit. As long as he plays like 90% of his games, I think he deserves to stay at this 2 spot.
I compared him to Ndamukong Suh the other day, the highest of Bryan Bresee. Bryan Bresee needs to stay healthy. He puts a healthy season together and he hits his peak. Then he can challenge Jalen Carter. For now, he is a projection, but he's a really, really talented projection who I think could be a top 10 pick when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we just yet to see him healthy. And I feel like if we get that, more people are going to be talking about, him as that top 10 pick. Because I think talent-wise, he checks all the boxes as far as athleticism, everything you want from a physical traits perspective. We just want to see him play more. And if you see him play more, he's going to put up numbers, and then he's going to then be a top 10, 15 pick as long as the medicals check out. So I think there's a tier break here between these top 2 guys and everything else right now, just as far as these guys are built for the NFL. They're not working to get built for the NFL. It's just a matter of, can he stay healthy and where does he go? Because I think he could be a superstar.
Bresee is still 20 years old, Joe. Does not turn 21 until October.
Let me just throw this out there, though, Bryan. I think you might be able to speak to this the most accurately of the 3 of us. Say he plays 50% of the games, 60% of the games. How much do you think that impacts his draft stock? Because he's already has the injury history, and then he comes into this year not fully healthy. What do you think it does to him?
It affects it. I mean, it does. It's one of those things where the greatest ability is always still availability. So, I mean, he has to show that he can play football, and really depends on why he's missing games. Like, I mean, he had the ACL last year, right? Like, wasn't that what he had? Yeah, which I mean can be a recurring thing. We'll see what happens as far as the overcompensation and all the continuing to re-injure, all that type of stuff. But it's really dependent upon what are the specific reasons that he misses games this year, that type of stuff. But it's going to hurt it. I mean, that could be the difference between going top 20 and going second round. Like, it really could. I mean, we'll see what the determiner is. Top 10. I mean, he might have top 5 talents as far as just like raw athleticism and size and power. And I mean, we talk about Keeanu Benton, Joe. Like, Keeanu Benton is strong because he's been building it up for 4 years. Bryan Bresee is just a freak show that has had this strength for
strong since freshman year of high school.
For real though. Yeah, he's he could be a special football player, man. He really could be.
I posted his high school highlights on our short form vertical channels, and if anyone wants to go check that out, it's on the Hack City YouTube. Him just beating the crap out of these poor kids in like a summer scrimmage is the funniest thing. It's funnier than the Paris Johnson clips because he's just not having it with any of these kids. He's just throwing them into the ground. One of the funniest things that you could probably go watch.
He's also been the same size for like 20 years, man.
Yes.
Like, this guy came out of his mom like just looking like that. It's crazy.
Grown man size. All right. Jalen Carter, the consensus number 1. Still weird that he wears 88, but we talked about him extensively, and he just checks every box. Like, he does everything well. Statistically, does not really show that presence, but the effect that he has on opposing offensive lines is the most disruptive player out of the class. Like, I can't remember the last defensive tackle that I've watched that has been this disruptive. He's immovable on double teams, and that's like crazy to see because it's not like he is some massive hulking nose tackle. He's twitchy. He is explosive. His play recognition pops on tape. And then I made this note on the show, has the nastiest swim move that I've seen. These stupid fat guards that just lunge at him, and he knows how to. Jalen Carter is really freaking smart because he just knows how to use their momentum against him, and he just gets through so easily.
Why do they have to be stupid and fat?
Go watch him when he does these swim moves. It's like, oh, here's another stupid, fat, blubbery guard that's going to lunge at him, and then Jalen Carter sees it every time. Like, he's like looking into the future. He sees it every freaking time that he just goes, whoop, lets him dive, lunge in front of him, and he's in the backfield. It's such an impactful player.
I hate talking up Georgia guys too much when Alex is on the podcast, but Alex, I gave him a pretty lofty comp. I don't know if you heard this the other day.
I haven't.
I compared him to Warren Sapp.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, just
man.
Again, not predicting he's gonna be a Hall of Famer, double-digit sack guy every year, but like from the physical profile, Warren Sapp was like 6'2", 310. Jalen Carter's like 6'3", 310. A little bit of a stockier type of like bowling ball type of frame, right? But he is just so explosive, like rare explosiveness and change of direction for that size. He's worth all the hype, man. I think that we're at the end of the day. I think Will Anderson is the top player that I've scouted so far in this process, but I think Jalen Carter may be a close second when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, so as y'all know, I'm a Georgia guy, and I try not to be biased, and I feel like I'm lower on some guys than the consensus at Georgia. Like, I don't carry too much bias, but by being a Georgia fan and watching all their games live, I tend to be earlier when it comes to Georgia guys as far as like, this is a guy you need to look out for. So I'm just going to highlight a couple tweets I made from January 1st of 2021. Don't know who I was watching at the time, but said, watching some Georgia defensive tape today, and man, Jalen Carter is only a true freshman. I might go on record to be the first one to declare that he'll be a top 10 pick in 2 years. He's that good. Followed by, we may look back to this talented Georgia defense 10 years from now and confidently say that Jalen Carter is the best player on the team, and I wouldn't be surprised.
That was after your tapes and find out if you were the first person to have that take, because you might.
Yeah.
It's better than your Brock Bowers take this year, so that's good.
What Brock Bowers is the best
That
tight end?
he's
I
the
mean,
best
him and
tight end
Michael
ever or something.
I've never said that. I never said that. Him and Michael Mayer are in a tier of their own, though, as far as tight ends go. But back to our boy Jalen Carter, he is different. I mean, athletically, he's quick wit. I almost call it quick wit when it comes to his pass rush, because it's almost like he's not someone that's just athletically better. I mean, he is athletically better than his opponents, but it's almost like he doesn't come with a plan. He's going to react to what the offensive lineman gives him, and that's why he's so effective as a pass rusher. And Joe, that's what you kind of mentioned. It's he adjusts to whatever the guard's doing. If they lunge at him, he's going to hit him with a quick swim move to keep his hands off of him. Exactly. So, I mean, I think this guy is just not only physically but mentally just quicker and faster, and more athletic than anybody that he goes up against. And I think this guy's a top 5 player in this class, unquestioned.
He was the best Georgia defensive lineman last year on a defensive line that had 3 first-round picks last year,
including the number 1 overall pick.
Yes, much better player than the number 1 overall pick last year, but
right,
different conversation.
But I mean, yeah, Devontae Wyatt,
28th overall.
Yep. When did Jordan Davis go? Was it?
It was like 13,
13,
13, I think 13 or 14, one of those.
Yep. People
Still
talk
hate
about
that
Nolan Smith on the defensive line. Trayvon Walker was obviously number 1. I mean, this guy's the best player on that defensive line. He's the best player on that defense.
No arguments there.
Yep.
All right. Great note to wrap us up on. At Joe DeLeone, at Alex Gilstrap, whatever Ryan's handle is, at Rise and Draft, at NFL Prospects Pod, Hack City on YouTube, or wherever you find us on social, and subscribe wherever you might too.